Hello there, I'm Fintusius and welcome to my ultimate TBC survival guide in 13 minutes. Before we start, just a quick disclaimer. This guide will also contain information from later phases of the Classic expansion in order to refresh vital information about TBC for most, as well as to point out differences between the Burning Crusade expansion and Shadowlands in somewhat of a progressive order. I would also like to thank my Patreon supporters, as thanks to you, my dark coffee now tastes sweet. Let's begin. The max level cap is now going to be 70, while the 1 to 60 leveling experience has been shortened by reducing the amount of XP required per level and increasing the XP rewards you get from quests by about 20%. TBC Classic will have, as per usual, Activision Blizzard release and global launch time. Only this time around, both factions are going to be put into one zone, being Hellfire Peninsula. If you want to have a hope at being able to play the game at launch, I recommend logging into your character a couple hours before your launch time in order to avoid queue times and potential disconnects. However, you should expect the servers to lag out anyway. You can go through the Dark Portal starting at level 58. This means that if you decided to boost a character, you can head to Outland straight away. Just don't forget to actually learn and use higher ranks of your abilities, as they are not updated on your action bars automatically and you'll need to drag and drop them onto your bars. Professions in TBC play a huge role in the game in terms of raw strength of the rewards, probably the biggest one of all WoW expansions. Notable rewards include the Great Stun Heralds for warriors or paladins, superb caster items, or unique ring enchants for enchanters. Keep in mind, most of those crafts are bind on pickup, meaning that you won't be able to sell them, so pick wisely. If you want to get more details out of that topic, check out Matt Season's TBC Profession Picking Guide. The max level cap for professions will now be 375, up from 300. The important takeaway here is that, contrary to the retail version of the game, if you want to take up a new profession, you'll have to level to 300 first through classic recipes, then proceed to TBC craft starting at 300. While on the topic of classic professions, some old recipes, most notably the Arcanate Transmute, no longer has a transmutation cooldown attached to it. The max distance from which you can see enemy nameplates without add-ons has been increased to 41 yards. In order for you to enable that function, you'll need to type this command you can see on screen just once in your chat. You can also find it in the video description. Just like on retail, you'll see a wide variety of boosting services being sold on the server-wide LFG channel. If you don't want to take part in those, make sure to get a chat filter add-on such as Stop Boost Spam to make your experience more enjoyable. I'll leave you a link in the video description. TBC Classic will launch in phases just like WoW Classic did, which means we'll start out with Phase 1. Having said that, Blizzard did mention that the Arena Season 1 will not be available at launch but delayed by a couple of weeks. Now that you're set for launch, head to the Dark Portal, but be wary as the entrance itself is not a sanctuary zone, meaning that you can expect it to be pretty wild on a PvP realm. You can have a look at Ironforger's pro server population data taken from before the TBC pre-patch. It can of course be inaccurate, but should still give you a rough idea of what to expect. Now begins your leveling process, and here you'll have two choices on how you want to tackle that. The first one is going to be through questing or mob grinding, and you can see on screen the recommended levels for the zones. There is, however, a very important disclaimer to that choice. Keep in mind that if you're going to be leveling at launch or close to it, Hellfire Peninsula might be extremely crowded on top of potentially being pretty laggy, which might lead to a lot of wait time for mob respawns or other PvP activities in the process. It is, however, going to be the ultimate MMO experience, so if you're into that, you'll surely have a blast. The second one is going to be the one recommended by most, which is leveling through dungeons, which comes with 3 pros but 1 major con. Dungeon leveling gives you access to great pieces of gear if you're not a character with maxed out classic gear. It also gives you reputation with associated factions, which is going to be very useful later on in order to unlock heroic mode, but more on that later. Lastly, it might save you from the potential outside world lag and issues, although it is not guaranteed, as instances might crash and become unavailable too. The major con to that leveling method is that it is very repetitive and can get daunting pretty fast, while missing out on the MMO launch open world life. You can see on screen the recommended dungeon leveling route as researched by Biosparks TV. If you want to get more details, check out his ultimate TBC leveling guide. Link will be in the video description. As you may have noticed, there was a part about a Karazhan attunement start. That is because this Phase 1 raid will require a lengthy attunement process just like most WoW Classic raids, meaning you'll have to complete a series of quests before being able to enter the raid. That question can be started at level 68 and you can get about half of it done before hitting max level. I highly recommend getting the Attune add-on, which is going to be a superb tool to keep you on track with all your required steps while also being able to see the progress of fellow party or guild members. You'll find a link in the video description. If you'll need additional help, you can check out Fake Qt's Karazhan Attunement Guide. As mentioned before, there are going to be 3 raids available at launch. While Karazhan will require said attunement, Magtheridon and Gruul's Lair will not. However, they're both considered to be harder than Karazhan, especially Magtheridon. Phase 1 is going to be known as the Tier 4, and you can find great guides to all those 3 raids done by Platinum WoW. As usual, links will be in the video description. Shattrath is going to be this expansion's mutual capital city and is home to two main reputations, the Aldors and the Scryers. Once you arrive there, you'll be asked to make a choice between them, which can technically be reverted in the future, but it is highly advised not to do so as it's a lengthy process. This will feel like a poor man's Covenant choice decision, but then again, you might realize that the TBC version turns out to be better in the grand scheme of things, as you'll mostly just be getting access to a different vendor with different rewards, including a shoulder enchant depending on the faction you chose. Make sure to check out which ones you might be after before making your decision. As a bonus, I can tell you that you won't die if you jump off the Scryers elevator, which used to be my #1 reason for picking them on all characters without flying. TBC will also introduce the quest system known as Dailies, capped at 25 per day, which is going to be a good source of gold for the average player. The main zones are going to be Ogrilla and Blade's Edge Mountain and Sketis and Terrakar, although the second one requires flying. You will most likely also be able to get to the Shadowmoon Valley Netherwing Dailies, which will grant you a Nether Drake mount once you're exalted, but in order to unlock those, you'll need to have bought the epic flying 280% skill to start the quest that will unlock that zone. As just mentioned, an important part of the TBC endgame is going to be obtaining your flying mount, as it will be required in order to unlock the Sketis dailies, but most importantly, the Nether Storm dungeons, which in turn are required for the Karazhan Attunement quest chain. You'll be able to get the normal 60% flying from your respective faction flying trainer in Shadowmoon Valley for a total of 900 gold, while the epic 280% will require 5200 gold. At max level, you'll be able to start doing heroic dungeons, which will be level 70 versions of all the TB's dungeons, but harder. In order to unlock heroic versions of dungeons, you'll need to obtain the required access key, which you can buy at Revered Reputation with the appropriate faction, which is exactly why I've mentioned previously that those dungeon reputations will later come in handy. You can see on screen which reputation is required for what dungeons, but if you want more in-depth coverage, you can check out Matt Season's Heroics Mega Guide. Every end boss of a heroic dungeon will drop one guaranteed epic item as well as one primal nether, which is going to be a buy-down pickup crafting reagent required for most of those epic profession crafts. Keep an eye out for those groups and tanks that might be reserving those for themselves. Every heroic dungeon boss will also drop the famed Badges of Justice. Those badges can be turned in for powerful rewards at the Naruk Geras. Geras? I don't know. Near the center of Shattrath. You can find a daily heroic dungeon quest in Shattrath near the lower city. Its completion will grant you 2 Badges of Justice. Keep in mind there is a daily lockout on the heroic difficulty of a dungeon. Itemization in the Burning Crusade is not as streamlined as it is in the retail version of the game. This means that items can vary in power through different effects, which may turn out to be quite powerful for your desired spec once you mix and match them, or maybe they have a special use just for PvP. Battlegrounds are a thing in the Burning Crusade, and winning one will grant you 3 marks of honor of that battleground, while losing will give you just 1. Those marks are required in order to buy PvP gear from vendors, which you can find in Stormwind for Alliance or Orgrimmar for Horde. Alongside those, you'll also need honor, which is obtained from Battlegrounds or PvP kills. The max cap of honor is 75,000, and it will not be reset when TBC launches, which led to a lot of PvP activity on the pre-patch. So much actually that people made losing pre-mates for faster mark farms, which is considered griefing by the way. So don't do that, as 1 week bans have already been issued. Every weekend you'll find battleground emissaries in capital cities. This will mean that honor gains from that specific battleground are increased by 50% over the duration of the weekend. Also, queuing with a group will teleport the entire group after the battleground is over to where the leader queued. Arenas will make their grand debut in the Burning Crusade, and as I'm mostly a PvP guy, you can expect more PvP content coming on the channel in the future, if you'd like to subscribe for that. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, the arena season will launch delayed by a few weeks and the date has yet to be confirmed. The main difference from TBC arenas and retail ones is that in order to queue rated arenas, you will be forced to create a team chart and be committed to that team and players within it, so no hopping in and out of teams in time for you to create real partnership bonds. You can have a total of 3 different teams, which is going to be 1 for each arena bracket. There are a few more changes in TBC Classic arenas that differ from both retail and the original Burning Crusade Season 1. Instead of the original starting point of 1500 rating, the game will use a more modern matchmaking system with new teams starting out at 0 rating. On top of those, there's going to be a rating requirement of 1850 for weapons and 2000 for shoulders. And lastly, a new PvP Rank 1 style title will be awarded for the top 0.1% of players in their respective region, which is going to be known as the Infernal Gladiator. The gear rating requirement blue post explanation looks great, which makes a lot of retail players pretty sad, as they would love to have a similar system knowing how rating requirements work in PvP items in Shadowlands Season 1 and the problems that come with it. In order to buy most of the epic PvP items, you'll need arena points. They will be granted on every weekly reset based on the highest rating you've achieved in your highest PvP bracket of choice last week, that is as long as you've played at least 10 games in your team. You can see on screen the original Arena Blue post from 2006 explaining arena points gains. The most important thing to take away from it is that the 5v5 bracket grants more points than the 3s, which in turn gives more points than the 2s. The amount of points you'll receive will start increasing very fast once you'll be able to go above 1k5. The system will always grant you the maximum amount of points you could have gotten for that week, so don't be scared in trying to push as high as possible in all the brackets you want in the same week. There are quite a few things which might catch you off guard in TBC arenas, especially after having played retail ones. I'll give you a few of my favorite examples from the beta. PvP diminishing returns will have a randomized 15 to 20 second cooldown window. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Warlock's Fear will feel like it never breaks from any forms of damage. There is no mutual diminishing returns between some stun effects, an example being Rogue's Cheap Shot does not DR with its own kidney shot. A polymorph starts out at 10 and not 8 seconds. Cloak of Shadows is on a 1 minute cooldown while Blind is on a 1.5 minute cooldown thanks to its talent. And lastly, neither shamans nor druids have access to a magical dispel. That being said, I wish you good fortune in the wars to come against rogues, mages and priests. On the topic of classes and comps, here's a very quick general PvP tier list I've made for all melee, ranged and healers in the game based on my own experience in TBC PvP back in the day, on top of testing things out on the beta as a rank 1 retail player, as well as watching the Asmongold Arena Invitational. Kudos to that, by the way, as it was a wonderful show.
You know my favorite thing about being on a comp with 2 healers?
What?
You have 2 people to blame at the end of the game.
That's true.
Keep in mind that no matter what kind of opinions you might hear or read elsewhere, you can still get to 2000 arena rating with any class or spec if you play it well. It's just going to be a bit harder. Do tell me in the comments if you'd want me to do a 60-second series about how all classes fare in TBC arenas. There has been a lot of talks about the perfect raid composition moving on to the Burning Crusade. Some say that warriors are bad, while others that red paladins are still a meme. The truth is that a PvE balance for most specs is a lot better than it was for Classic, and there's a wide variety of specs that now grant party or raid-wide buffs or debuffs versus a boss. You can check out Wowhead's tool of the TBC raid composition to see who brings what and lead your raid however you'll want, but overall you should consider all classes and specs to be viable, at least in comparison to the Classic raiding scene. If you happen to go into raids without a guild, you may find yourself joining a pickup group which is going to attribute loot doing the SRMSOS loot system. The way it works is that SR stands for Soft Reserve, and you'll be given a link to an external website known as softres.it. Then, once you fill in your character's information, you'll be granted the possibility to soft reserve 1 or 2 items depending on what was agreed upon before the raid started. If that item you soft reserved were to drop from a boss, only the persons that soft reserved on it will be allowed to roll on it. You can also check out what other raiders have soft reserved and pick something else, so that way you can guarantee yourself that item as long as it drops. If the SR was agreed to be 2, you can also SR an item twice, allowing you that way to roll twice on it if it were to drop, thus increasing your chance of getting it even more. As a bonus point, Alliance Paladins will be granted the Seal of Blood at level 70, which previously was only available to Horde Paladins. In addition to that, there's something known as Seal Twisting that you can do as a Retribution Paladin, which effectively allows you to benefit from 2 seals at the same time from your melee hit. A proper usage of this so-called Seal Twisting should make Red Paladins have competitive DPS and should not be made fun of. Seriously, give a break to my Paladin brothers after 2 years of Classic. If you want to go more in depth about this topic, you can check out Blythe's Seal Twisting guide, or just hit me up on my Discord, as I always do my best to answer all your WoW related questions. Make sure to check out all the creators mentioned in the video, as they all did a wonderful job. You can find all the links in the video description. If you however happen to enjoy my video, maybe you'll decide to click the like button, as it will make me one happy hedgehog. You can also subscribe for more WoW PvP and PvE content coming on the channel. I wish you all a lag-free TBC launch, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.